Tastes of Time episode The History of Food in English, from ancient times to today.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Tastes of Time, the podcast where we explore the rich, flavorful history of food and how it's shaped our cultures, our identities, and our vocabularies. I'm Alex Dash.
And I'm Jamie. And today we're diving into a really fascinating topic, the history of food in English, from ancient times to today. This isn't just about what people used to eat, but also about how the English language has changed and adapted around food over thousands of years.
Right, because when we talk about food history, we're also talking about trade, migration, colonization, culture, and of course, language. English has absorbed food words from all over the world, and it's a great lens to view global history through.
So let's rewind all the way back to the beginning. Prehistoric times. We're talking hunter-gatherer societies. Back then, food was simple. Wild plants, nuts, fruits, and whatever animals they could hunt. Cooking was minimal. Roasting over an open fire was the main method.
And of course, English as a language didn't exist yet. But once agriculture started to spread, first in the Fertile Crescent, then across Europe, people began to settle and food became more structured. Grains like wheat and barley were cultivated. That's where we first start to see the kinds of foods that would later become staples in English-speaking countries.
When the Anglo-Saxons came to Britain around the 5th century, they brought with them a Germanic language that would eventually evolve into Old English. A lot of our modern food words have roots in Old English. For example, bread comes from the Old English bread, meaning piece or bit of food.
Right, and we also get words like milk, egg, and meat from these early Germanic roots. These were basic, everyday foods, so it makes sense that the words have stuck around.
Then came the Vikings. They invaded parts of England around the 9th century, and Old Norse influenced Old English. Words like cake and knife have Norse origins. It's interesting because you can almost track the invasions and migrations through food vocabulary.
And then the big one, the Norman conquest in 1066. The Normans brought French to England, and that had a massive effect on the English language, especially when it comes to food. We started to see this interesting division in food words. The animals kept their English names, cow, pig, sheep, but their meat took on French names. Beef from bœuf, pork from pork, and mutton from mouton.
That divide says a lot about class structure too. The English-speaking peasants raised the animals, and the French-speaking nobility ate them. So the vocabulary reflects that social hierarchy.
Exactly. And in the Middle Ages, food started to get a bit more exciting, at least for the upper classes. Spices like cinnamon, saffron, and pepper were highly prized and imported from Asia and the Middle East. The spice trade was huge, and it brought not just ingredients, but also new words into English.
One thing I love is how food became a status symbol. The more exotic your food, the richer and more powerful you appeared. So you get elaborate feasts, spiced wines, and dishes with gold leaf. The poor, meanwhile, were still eating barley bread, onions, and whatever root vegetables they could grow.
Fast forward to the Age of Exploration, roughly the 15th to 17th centuries. This is when things really changed. Europeans, including the English, started sailing across the world, discovering new lands, and more importantly, new foods.
This era gave English some of its most common food words: potato, tomato, chocolate, vanilla, chili, maize, and turkey, all come from the Americas. Think about that. None of those foods existed in Europe before the 1500s.
And yet today, we can't imagine British or American cuisine without potatoes or chocolate. This shows how quickly a culture can adopt and absorb new foods, and their names.
And those words often came from indigenous languages, Spanish or Portuguese, then got anglicized. For example, chocolate comes from the Nahuatl word zocolatl.
As colonization expanded, so did the English food vocabulary. From India, we got curry, chai, mango and ginger. From Africa, we got yam and okra. The British Empire didn't just conquer land, it also absorbed cuisines and food words.
And in the 18th and 19th centuries, we saw the rise of sugar, tea, and coffee as everyday staples. That wasn't the case before. These were luxury items at first, but thanks to plantations and trade, they became more affordable and widespread. And again, their names became part of daily English.
Then came the Industrial Revolution. This was a time of huge change in how food was produced, transported, and consumed. Suddenly, food could be canned, frozen, and shipped across countries. New inventions like the refrigerator, tin can, and eventually the microwave transformed kitchens.
And with new technology came new vocabulary. Words like processed food, fast food, preservatives, and later on, TV dinner.
TV dinners. That's such a classic term from mid-20th century America. And let's not forget the rise of brand names becoming food words themselves. Kleenex, Jell-O, Spam, even Coke.
By the time we reach the late 20th century and into the 21st, food becomes global. English-speaking countries are eating dishes from every corner of the globe, and the English language reflects that. Words like sushi, taco, hummus, pho, and kimchi are now just as familiar as hamburger or sandwich.
And let's talk about modern food trends. Plant-based, gluten-free, organic, superfood, kombucha. These are all recent additions to the way we talk about food. And they tell us something about modern values. Health, sustainability, and food ethics.
Social media plays a big role too. Words like foodie, mukbang, Instagram-worthy, or even snack with 2 C's. These are part of food culture now.
It's wild how language evolves. 10 years ago, no one would say, "Let's get some bubble tea and watch mukbangs." Now it's normal.
So what have we learned? English food vocabulary is a kind of map. It shows us where people traveled, who they met, what they traded, and what they valued.
Totally. From ancient grains to TikTok snacks, the way we talk about food in English is a story of history, contact, and change.
And it's still evolving. Who knows what words will enter the language in the next decade? Lab-grown meat? Insect protein? AI-generated recipes?
The future is full of flavor. Thanks for joining us on this journey through the history of food in English.
Next time on Taste of Time, we're exploring the world of forbidden foods, banned dishes, and the stories behind them.
Until then, stay hungry
For history.